Let me ask you, how many times have you been told to set a timer for something? Maybe it was a friend saying, oh, just put it in your calendar, or your coworker saying, well, why don't you send an alert? Or maybe it's me on the podcast suggesting, hey, try setting a timer or a reminder here. And maybe you even did it. You went in, you set the reminder or the notification, and you think, okay, great. Now I'm actually going to remember what I need to do here. And then you don't, because either the reminder popped up at the worst possible moment, or it blended with all of the other notifications on your phone, or you immediately swiped it away before your brain even had a chance to register what it said. Yeah, I've been there too. Far too many times to count. And I've noticed it coming up quite often on coaching calls with some of my clients over the last few weeks as well. So that is what we're exploring today on episode 296 of the I'm Busy Being Awesome podcast. Why our ADHD brains often stop noticing our notifications, and why our reminders don't actually remind us, and how we can really reset our systems so that we can actually start seeing and acting on the things that matter. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. How are you? Are you ready to talk about all things reminders and notifications and how we can actually leverage these as support today? Excellent. Well, let's just dive in. Let's get started. First up, let's look at why we tend to stop seeing these notifications in the first place. All right. Why do we stop seeing our notifications? I mean, we set them for a reason. We want them to work. We want to remember that appointment or that deadline, or to flip the laundry from the washer to the dryer. So why do we swipe away the notifications without even reading them? Well, there are a handful of different things happening here. Okay. The first of which is when we have too many notifications, we just stop noticing them. Our brains are constantly filtering information. Every day we are bombarded with emails and messages and app alerts and calendar reminders and breaking news notifications. And when everything competes for our attention, it all just blends together. It's just like the classic prioritization saying, which is when everything matters, nothing matters. The same is true with notifications. We can't actually see what matters anymore when there's so many. Or if you think about it like this, have you ever walked into a cluttered room or noticed when your desk just has so much more stuff than usual on it? It just seems harder to focus. We seem to be distracted by all the noise, and we can't really zoom in on that thing that matters. And that's exactly what happens when our notification center is overloaded as well. Now, at first, maybe we do notice a few of the reminders that we set. But after a while, our brain will learn, most of this stuff just isn't really important. And it just adds to the digital clutter of our notification stack. And eventually we start automatically swiping or dismissing or tuning out, sometimes without even realizing that we're doing so. So that's the first reason why our notifications stop working. Our ADHD brains really struggle to filter out the important notifications from the noise. And because of the way the phones are formatted, and when we download apps, they all want to send us notifications. If we're not intentional about that, it's so easy to have all of the notifications pile up, and there's so many competing for our attention. The second reason that tends to trip us up, the second reason why our notifications and our reminders kind of lose their effectiveness, is that every time a notification pops up, it presents a micro decision. We have so many of these little unnecessary decisions embedded within every single notification. Do I need to check this right now? Is this actually important? Can I ignore this one? Should I respond? What if I forget about it later? And then you multiply that by 50 plus notifications a day, and it is no wonder why we see the notifications generally as less important. Instead of engaging with the alerts, we just swipe them away because it's so much easier than having to pause and make another micro decision in an already overstimulated brain. The third reason why our reminders tend to stop working for our ADHD brains, this is a big one for me, is that they don't always show up when we actually can act on them. So let's say that you set a reminder to check your email at 1, but at 1, you're in the middle of a conversation, or you're in a deep focus time, or you're making lunch for your kids. Your brain isn't primed for that task at that moment at 1 o'clock. So the reminder pops up and swipe is gone because that wasn't the right time. And unless you have some kind of backup system in place to have the reminder come back, it's now lost to the abyss. For a notification to really work, it has to appear at the moment when we can actually do something about it. Or, like I said, have some sort of backup system in place that it can come back around when we can do something. Otherwise, it's just another interruption. And then finally, the fourth obstacle that I see come up time and time again when it comes to actually seeing and responding to the notifications and reminders is that our ADHD brains already have so much going on internally. We are juggling ideas and mentally rewriting that email that we need to send and remembering to pick up dog food and wondering if we paid the bill yet. And what was that thing I was going to do at 3? And so when an external notification comes in, especially if it's not urgent, our brain just pushes it aside in favor of whatever is already taking up space in our working memory. It's not that we don't care about the reminder. It's just that in that moment, it doesn't seem nearly as relevant as what's already happening in our head. So what can we do about this? If reminders don't actually remind us, what's the fix? Well, that is what we're going to talk about next. How can we reset our notifications and cut out the noise and ensure that the reminders and notifications that we do keep actually get noticed? Because the goal, let me be clear, is not to just set more reminders for your reminders, okay? The goal is to set up reminders that you actually need at the right time when you need them, and then eliminating the rest. Now, before we get to those next steps, though, I want to ask, have you taken my free course on how to boost your focus and your concentration? In this free training, in about 30 minutes, I offer my top 6 strategies to help you eliminate distractions and focus on what actually matters. And you can sign up now through the link in the show notes or head to I'mBusyBeingAwesome.com/focus and you can start implementing those strategies today. Again, that's I'mBusyBeingAwesome.com/focus if you are ready to boost your focus and concentration in under 30 minutes. 6 strategies, put them to use today. Okay. So we now understand why our notifications stop working. Let's talk about that fix. And as a heads up, I just want to warn you, step 1 of this process I'm about to share is going to sound extreme. I am aware of that. Stick with me. Step 1 is to turn your notifications off. All of them. Turn them off. Almost all of them. Let me give you a caveat, okay? There's a few things I want to make clear. You do know your non-negotiables. If there is an app that is a must, that must absolutely be turned on at all times for work or for caretaking or something critical, if you have an insulin reader that alerts you if your blood sugars drop or something, do not turn that off. And if you have alerts that let you know there's water in your basement when there shouldn't be water in your basement, do not turn those off, okay? Use your judgment here. You know what the non-negotiables are, but be ruthless, okay? Aside from those non-negotiables and maybe the standard alerts on your phone, like text message, phone call, any of those non-negotiable apps, keep those on, but everything else, turn them off. Okay, that means literally almost every app you have downloaded on your phone. Yes, not just the random ones that kind of annoy you, not just the ones that you think you don't need. I'm talking a full-on notification and reminder detox. Because here's the reality. most of what is buzzing and pinging and dropping down on your screen from your phone isn't actually that important to begin with. Okay? Now, your brain might absolutely freak out as you're hearing this. Okay, I get it. Turning off everything might seem kind of risky at first. You might be thinking, but what if I forget to check my email? Or what if I missed something important in the news or whatever? And that fear makes sense. Okay, but here's what I invite you to consider. How many notifications do you get in a day? And how many of them truly required your attention at that exact moment? How many were just background noise? By turning everything off just for a few days, I'm not talking about forever, but just for a few days, you give your brain a chance to recalibrate. And you're going to start noticing what you actually need, what you actually miss, and more importantly, all the things that you don't. And if you are worried about forgetting about an app or forgetting about something important, you can make a note of that, right? Make a note in your Notes app or in your Reminders app, and then ironically, set that one reminder in your phone to check the list in a day or two. And you'll see it because you've turned off all your other notifications, okay? And you can see if you actually need those notifications turned back on. So I invite you to take 5 minutes. You could do it right now as you're listening to this, actually, and go into your settings. Turn off the notifications from the apps that you've downloaded. Again, I personally would keep on text messages and calls and my non-negotiable apps, okay? Keep those on, but everything else, turn the notifications off and then give it a couple of days and see how you feel. Notice what you naturally check on your own. And when you do get that urge to check something, ask yourself, was this actually urgent? Did I need a notification for it? Do I want to have a notification for it? So this first step is all about really resetting your system so that when we start adding them back in the next step, we're doing so intentionally. Now, if you're not quite sure how to turn off your notifications, I'm going to give just a quick step-by-step, both for iOS and for Android, okay? So for iOS, for the iPhone, you open up the Settings app, that's the little gear icon, and tap on Notifications. And then all you need to do is scroll through the list of apps and you tap on each one and then you toggle Allow Notifications to Off. And that turns off the notifications for all the different apps. And you do that for each one, okay? So go through your apps and turn off the notifications for anything that's a negotiable app, right? Not the non-negotiable ones, but the ones that you know you don't actually need. And again, be ruthless here. Your brain's going to be arguing, no, I do need this. I need this one for sure. But do you really need it? If you don't get it at that exact moment, will it be okay? Okay. And then with Android, it's very similar. Essentially, again, open the Settings app, tap on Notifications, or it might say Apps and Notifications. And then you would select either App Notifications or Manage Notifications. And then you just similarly scroll through the apps, tap on them, and toggle the notifications to off. Okay. So we've turned off all the notifications. We've taken a little bit of time, maybe a day or two, to notice how that feels. If you're willing to do it for even longer, amazing, but a day or two. Now we're going to think about which of the notifications actually serve you. And we're going to bring those back. But remember, ADHD brains thrive with clarity and with simplicity. We don't want to be wasting our executive functions trying to decide what matters most amidst this sea of unimportant notifications. So categorize what actually deserves your attention. I actually like to think about 3 different categories to help me get really clear on what I want to be alerted about and when. So for the first of which is critical alerts. Okay, so calls or texts from key contacts or urgent reminders, that kind of thing. I also have a category of time-sensitive things. So this might be calendar events, scheduled commitments, maybe medications if you take them at a certain time. That's one that I use. It could be home alert apps in case, let's say, there's your smoke detector going off and you're not at home. You probably want that thing on, right? Probably you haven't turned that one off yet. And then also there's a third category of kind of the supportive nudges. Again, this might be where you have your medication reminders, or maybe the habit tracker. And I also want to say here, as just kind of a side tip, is if you notice you do tend to swipe away reminders without actually reading them, but you do want to keep them, you might consider changing how they appear on your phone. So you might adjust the time that it goes off. You might adjust the sound so that it's more distinct or that it's a vibrate, or you might try using a widget on the home screen of your app instead of a pop-up so that way it's visible but not disruptive and it doesn't disappear. So that is step number 2. We are intentionally bringing things back. And I, again, like to think through those 3 different categories. The first of which is critical alerts. The second are the time-sensitive notifications. And then the third are maybe those supportive nudges if you actually want them on and will use them. Okay? Then we get to step 3. This is the last step, which is to create some sort of monthly check-in. I always think it's helpful to have a regular check-in and reset, because what's working right now might not be working in a month, or something might have changed. So you can kind of ironically set a recurring appointment in your calendar to reassess the notifications, or you might pair it with another habit that you've already established once a month, maybe with budgeting or really going through your to-do list and checking off the things that are no longer relevant or whatever. But going through and asking yourself a couple of questions. Are all of these notifications still helpful? Am I responding to them, or do I find myself dismissing them more often? Do I need to tweak anything? The time of day, how I hear it. This doesn't have to be a big project. It takes me maybe 3 minutes. But just that quick check-in to keep your system working for you. And again, whether you set some sort of recurring calendar alert or something, or you pair it with an existing habit like reviewing your budget or doing that deep clean of your to-do list or whatever, it can be really helpful. I also want to share a couple of specifics in how we can bring back our notifications in a way that really does serve us. I'm going to share some kind of specific tips here. Now, as a full disclaimer, I am an iOS Apple user through and through. In fact, growing up, my dad worked for Apple, so that's all I've ever really used. I don't know how to make an Android or a PC work properly. So the strategies I'm sharing today are based on the iPhone and iPhone settings, but I did have a good conversation with my friend ChatGPT, and I did ask for Android equivalents as well. So hopefully, as we go through this, I can give you some Android tips too. But we've turned off the notifications. Okay, we've turned off the noise. Let's think about how we can intentionally bring back what serves us with a couple of different strategies. One of the best tools that I think we can introduce here is something called the scheduled summary. Okay, scheduled summary is a built-in feature in iOS, but there is an Android version as well. But essentially what it does is it groups non-urgent notifications together, and it delivers them at a set time rather than having them all come in and interrupt you all throughout the day. So you can have that scheduled reminder so that all of those non-important, non-urgent things can come in at 4 p.m. or at lunchtime or at 7 after dinner or whatever, and you get to choose. So I think this is really an ideal situation if you still want to see certain updates, but you get to do so on your terms. And I think, again, this is really useful for the notifications. You realize, I do kind of want to keep this around. I like to hear about these things, but I don't want them pulling me from my focus throughout the day. So that might be news updates or social media notifications or sales from your favorite store, non-time sensitive banking updates. They always email you or message you like your new statement or whatever, or subscription updates, that kind of thing. And in fact, when you go through the process of turning on your apps, okay, as you're doing that, you might ask yourself, okay, so if I'm going to turn this app on, do I need to hear about the thing right away when it happens, or could it wait until my scheduled summary time? And I have a sneaking suspicion that the majority of the apps that you do decide to turn back on could be scheduled summary. Again, unless they're the very time sensitive, urgent, or critical alerts. So for example, if you travel a lot or something, you might want to keep the notifications from your airlines on because you want to know if your plane is on time or if your gate changed or whatever. But you probably don't need to know about the latest trend report about your sleep patterns from your Aura Ring the moment that that's available. Okay, you could probably be just fine seeing that at the scheduled time in the evening after the workday ends. So essentially, this is really an opportunity to take control of your attention and decide intentionally when you want these different companies to be able to tap you on the shoulder and take up some of your precious time. Okay, so the way that you do this is for iOS. Again, go to settings and then notifications, and then you tap on scheduled summary and you toggle that to on. And then you get to just go through and select the apps that you want to include in that summary. And again, I would choose the ones that send the non-urgent alerts, news, social media, shopping apps, that kind of thing. And then you get to set your preferred summary times. So whether that's in the morning or you want to do it at lunch or after dinner, or maybe you need a couple of scheduled summaries, whatever works best for you. Okay. So this way, instead of being bombarded all day long, whenever these companies decide they want your attention, you instead get a batch of notifications at set times that are convenient for you. Now, again, Android does have similar features. I believe on Samsung, at least according to ChatGPT, it's called Notification Digest. And then on other devices, it's called Notification Summary. Okay, so I believe it's a similar approach. You go to settings, then notifications, and then advanced settings. And then you can turn the Notification Digest on. And you similarly just choose the apps that you want to be batched in that scheduled summary. Okay, so by now, you've cut out the noise. You've added back only the notifications that actually serve you. And for many of you, that might be all you need. But I also want to offer a couple of thoughts for those of you who love to tinker with tech. Okay. Some of you may want to make sure that the notifications are exactly how you want them, showing up in a way that works best for your brain. If you are not a tinkerer, if you don't care, amazing, done, your success. Okay. You've already done the things. If you're a tinkerer, okay, both iPhone and Android have a lot of different options for organizing your notifications. Okay. So that might look like whether you want to just see a count of unread notifications, like there are 14 unread notifications, or maybe you want it to be set so that you have your stack of notifications grouped by app. So you can see my email has 14 notifications and Voxer has 7 and Nordstrom has 1 or whatever. Okay. Or you might just want the full list of everything all laid out. So you can decide on that. You can also decide on whether you want alerts on your lock screen or just in your notification center, or if you want them popping up on banners, whether you want them to make a sound or to stay silent or to vibrate. And listen, like I said, if you love tweaking settings and you want to dial in every last detail, set aside that time, go for it. Okay. Amazing. And if just hearing me say all those things made your brain want to melt, but you do want to kind of play with it, you can, again, do a quick search in ChatGPT or Google how to customize notifications on, and then put your phone model in there. And it's going to walk you step by step where you can find everything and how to set it up for you. Okay. But if you're like, whoa, that sounds like way too much, I don't even want to think about it. Here's kind of the simplified approach. You've gone through the 3 steps, right? Now, as you go about your days, if a notification grabs your attention at the wrong time, take a minute and adjust where and how that notification appears. If you notice you keep swiping an alert away without reading it, maybe try a different display setting or turning it off completely or putting it in that scheduled summary. If something feels really distracting, maybe play around with adding it to that notification summary instead, so that it's not pulling at your attention when you're trying to get the work done. Okay, the goal is not to make these notifications perfect or to eliminate them entirely. Our goal here is to make the notifications actually useful so that they remind you when you need the reminder and your brain registers it. So give it a try and set it up once, see how it works, and then tweak as you go. Because really, at the end of the day, notifications are there to work for you, not against you. All right, let's wrap this up with a quick recap. Today, we tackled the notification overload problem and how we can actually use reminders to remind us about things. And there were kind of three big takeaways. The first of which is that too many notifications means we stop seeing those notifications. And when everything is competing for our attention, nothing actually seems important anymore. So if you've ever wondered why your reminders don't actually remind you, that's why. There's too much going on. Then we talked about turning everything off except for those non-negotiables. And then slowly adding back only what's necessary. Instead of trying to tweak notifications one by one, just start from a clean slate. And then finally, do a monthly check-in. I think it's super helpful to have a regular reset since what might be working right now might not be necessary or needed in a month. So building in that quick check-in to reassess what's helping and what's not can really help clear out any unnecessary noise and keep your systems moving smoothly. And of course, I want to hear how this goes for you. Send me a DM. I am over at I'm Busy Being Awesome on Instagram. What notifications did you actually miss? What stayed off? What surprised you in this app audit? Because when we share what works, we help each other find new ways to work with our ADHD brains. All right, my friends, that's going to do it for us this week. And if you are ready to take these concepts and apply them to your life, if you're ready to learn how to support your ADHD in a way that works best for you, I invite you to check out today's show notes where you can learn more about how we can work together, both in my small group coaching program, We're Busy Being Awesome, and in one-on-one coaching. Also, if you want to learn my simple step-by-step to locking in a routine and making it stick, be sure to check out my free course called the ADHD Routine Revamp. You can tap through the link in the show notes or head to I'mBusyBeingAwesome.com/routine to sign up. And finally, do you know someone who maybe would benefit from this notification reset as well? Be a rock star and send this episode to them. Thank you for helping me get these tools to even more busy, awesome brains who need them. Until next time, keep being awesome. I'll talk with you soon.